Jordan, we talked recently about career, like kind of what led you to the position that you're in now, about a memory that you had and kind of a change in your career. And I wanted to just start out, just jump right into that, man. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of like really zoom back out and talk about your story overall and GLI story as well.
Thanks, Landon. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about that. It's funny. My job at GLI is to network and to connect people. That's what I do at a basic level. And it's through networking and through people connecting me along the way that I found this job. I was working as a financial advisor in 2013 and had to build a network, had to get people to know like and trust me with the hopeful goal of them giving me their investable assets at some point. I got to that goal sometimes. Most of the time I didn't. But what I did was meet people in the community. I got to learn how rich this community is, how helpful this community is, how just wonderful all the people are that are here. And it was through building that network and then asking them for help along the way that I found this job at GLI. And it could not be more perfect because that's exactly what I get to do every day with everyone that I interact with. And that's nothing to do with Roth IRAs or required minimum distributions or rate of return on an investment these days.
It's always to me really interesting. I think you hit on it here about the power of relationships, and obviously we live in a time that is so technology driven. AI is all over the place, but I do think that we still, and I don't think this will ever change. We live in a world that's still driven by relationships for the most part. And I've said many times, if I took every customer that we have and I mapped it based on connections and relationships, it would just be kind of a fascinating exercise. And I will do that one day. But I think your story just, again, it's like you never know. And the other thing that I've learned is they told me when I moved here 10 plus years ago that Louisville's a big, small town. And you never know when a connection with somebody that you make today that seems somewhat benign or just seems sort of in passing is all of a sudden 2 years later extremely critical in whatever direction you're trying to go. Would you agree with that? I mean, obviously your story supports that, but even in your role now.
Yeah, 1000%. I wish I could map out all of the connections that I have and get a view behind the matrix of how they're all connected. It would be such an overlapping web of connection points that it would probably just be one big solid block of, uh, of connections. You're
Yeah.
right. It's a big, small town. And one of the things that I think Louisville has going for it that's the most valuable resource and the most valuable asset that it has to give to its citizens and to give to companies and to give to people such as myself. I just turned 37. I moved here when I was 18. And I didn't really start networking until I was about 25, but it was at that time that I started to reach out to the community and I started to understand just how powerful those connections are and how easy it is to connect here and how fast you can make connections and how meaningful those connections can be because you're not making them on one side of the town and then you live over here and you'll never see them again. It's just big enough where there's so many people to meet, just small enough where all those people that you meet are going to come back around sooner than you think. And you're exactly right. If you spend enough time cultivating those relationships, spend enough time just doing good for people without asking for anything in return, all of it comes back.
Yeah, no doubt. One of the things I've said that I really appreciate about Louisville having I'm originally from Ohio. I think I slipped that in on every episode just so people never forget. Go Bucks. But is while Louisville is a big small town and an extremely tight knit community, for example, like St. X high school folks, Trinity, there's a strong connection, but they are not closed off. Some communities like that can be closed off to folks coming in from outside of that network, and that is not the case here. I think it's this excellent blend of like they have a lot of pride in the area. They have their networks, and they certainly want to sort of do what's best for the people that they're connected to through the high school system and things like that. But they're not at all closed off to saying, hey, but if you're coming here, we're interested in helping you too.
Sure. I think you have a community here that we're all rowing in the same direction in that we want population growth, we want business growth, we want advancement for the city, we want better opportunities for the people. And at least through my experience talking with a wide variety of people every single day, everyone is of the same mindset that that's what we want. And that's what you have to have in order to have all those things happen is these communities that are accepting of new people and willing to lift them up, just like they did me. They're willing to help connect you to this person or to that person, or let you know that this is going on and bring you along their journey and let you know about all these great things that Louisville has to offer. If you had a community that was closed off, if you had different, cliques or groups or things like that that were working against each other instead of with each other, that's just a hindrance to the city. And I don't think that you find that here. You get people that are obviously proud of their background and lean into that and give back. But yeah, if I'm the shining example of the fact that you could move here and know absolutely nobody. I mean, besides my older brother and the two people I moved here with, and somehow find yourself working at the Chamber of Commerce, connecting people known as someone that knows everything. I mean, where else could something like that happen?
I think that even just our connection is an example of that. And so, I love starting out with this, because we're a relational company. I think a big theme of our discussion, this episode is going to be around relationship in the building of, I think, your personal brand through LinkedIn, which is kind of how I first kind of, was connected to you. I mean, obviously I've been a member of GLI for some time, so I was kind of aware of you, but then saw your presence on there. And then you start to see on LinkedIn mutual connections, or you have a conversation with somebody. I think I can't even remember who it was that really connected us. Maybe I just reached out directly, but then there's just a lot of people that I know, and you start to see these concentric circles of relationships, and you're like, man, it's kind of like what happened to me with Brad Luttrell, formerly of Go Wild and now with Prologue. Is like we were just kind of like two ships passing in the night. I was seeing him on LinkedIn all the time, and I'm like, he knows this person and that person, and I said, man, we should get coffee, we should get lunch, and we did, and then it was kind of the same kind of thing. We grabbed coffee. It's just interesting because this is a podcast about brand. And we're here to really talk about how you've built your brand personally through LinkedIn. I mean, super successful kind of efforts there. And then also the GLI brand. And so before we get to that, let's roll back just a little bit. You kind of alluded to it, moving here when you were younger, but tell everybody just a little bit about you, like the person, where are you from, where you grew up, schools, family, things like that.
Happy to. Originally from Litchfield, Kentucky, which is the capital of Grayson County. It's right on the edge of the weather map. If you ever look at Jay Cardoso giving you an update of the weather, we're right down here. So we're on TV sometimes. And I grew up there, 18 years spent in Litchfield. And when it was time to graduate college, I knew that there was more out there for me. I didn't really know what. I found myself at the University of Louisville. I was enrolled in the Metro College program at UPS, loading containers from planes from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. And then 5 years later, graduate from there and find myself in the workforce, kind of still figuring things out. In college, I thought I had a sense of what I didn't want to do. And turns out none of that was right. I was just figuring things out. And, college is a great place for that. And then my older brother was kind enough to reach out and ask me to come work with him as an independent financial advisor. Which adds
let me slip in. I want to ask a question. So I'm curious, growing up in Litchfield, U of L, the things you described, were you always kind of a connector? Like, were you always a networker? Like, I'm looking at what you're doing now, or is that was not something that you did when you were younger?
No, absolutely not. I was 1000% an introvert. I was 1000% oblivious of the fact that the people in your life can have a really positive impact on you. I was in no way, shape, or form qualified to do this job at any point in my life. And it was only for the experiences that I had along the way, all the way through there, that I started to switch on in these areas in my life and really start to appreciate things. But no, it was becoming a financial advisor with Jason. And then the mandate was, okay, well, now that you're in this job, you have to go get people to know, like, and trust you. And you got to build the network. And I started literally from the ground up.
So he didn't hand you any. There was no like, here's a book of business or anything. It was like, hey, come work for me, and here's some business cards, and sort of have fun.
There was a component of that, but the new business development part, maybe he was just throwing me in the deep end, and he knew it was going to be hard, but it really was. I was searching for everything that I could, showing up everywhere that I could, and learn the value of networking and connecting along the way. I like to tell people, at least when I'm talking to them about the resources that we have at GLI and how I can help apply them to their goals and their business, learn this stuff on the streets. I've got the experience. I know all the wrong things to do. I know all the right things to do, all that stuff. There's a difference in knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is something that somebody tells you, which is good. It can be true. But wisdom is the fact that you went through it yourself and you know it to be true. When you're telling somebody these things, that they're absolutely right because they've worked for you.
I've heard it called the difference between learned knowledge and activity knowledge. And there's a big difference. I mean, there's a huge difference. I'm even learning at this stage. I mean, you said you're 37. Is that what you said? Yeah. And I'm 40. I'll be 45, but I'm 44 now. And the difference between knowing something like up here in your head and knowing it in your heart, which is what you're describing. I fully
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah. So what kind of so you're doing that, you're kind of being forced to learn how to build your brand, essentially your personal brand in this role as an independent financial advisor. And then hold on, I got to ask. You laughed when you said that. Why do you like give me that? Why'd you laugh?
It's just so funny to think back in those years. I mean, those you ever heard the term fake it till you make it? I mean, that
Yeah.
was me on the poster on the wall. Jordan Clemons, Series 7, Series 66, buy and sell mutual funds for you uh, as a
You
financial
still laugh
advisor.
about it. That's great.
I do. I mean, it's just the most absurd thing that there ever was. I did it for 5 years and it grew me into a networker, but in no way, shape, or form was I ever qualified to really help people manage their assets. I could just connect with them and help them understand things. I had
Yeah.
knowledge, but it's just funny hearing that come out the word to somebody else because it feels like forever ago. And I don't really think about the profession so much anymore as I do all the activity and the relationships and the networking that I did back in the day.
Talk to me about you're doing this. It sounds like you kind of knew, hey, this is probably not my long term deal. What was the transition then from that to GLI?
Yeah, let me try to think. Remember, it was like a slow realization that number one, I didn't have a fire lit under me for the actual profession of what I was doing. When you're building a book of business as a 25-year-old financial advisor, it's very, very hard. And that you have to have this passion for what it is that you do, and that comes through in your work. And I found that this passion that I had was not really for the job I was doing, but it was the things that were around getting the business for the job, which was meeting people, connecting with them, wanting to help them. And I was hindered by the fact that, I really didn't have a whole lot to offer people if they didn't want to open a Roth IRA or something like that. But I did connect them where I could. And it was a realization that, okay, I did this for 5 years. I gave it a solid shot. I'm not throwing in the towel before, before I did the hard work. And had a short stint in between that job and GLI as a financial planner, which really taught me that that wasn't what was for me. And then I tapped into my network to just throw my hands up and ask for help. And someone from that network that responded to an email connected me with
So
someone at
you
GLI.
were kind of looking for another opportunity, and then so you were sort of using the network that you had built at that point to say, hey, it's just become clear this is not my long term stop. I'd like to do something else, but I'm not sure what opportunities are out there. Am I kind of tracking?
Yeah. So I was cutting the cord on the imposter syndrome. I was telling everybody, hey, this isn't me. I don't want to do this. I'm just letting you know that. And I'm also letting you know I have no idea what I actually want to do.
Yeah,
And
no, that's good. I mean,
people
and
that I
again,
can,
I was just going to comment that it's funny today. I talked to someone the other day. They were looking for a new role, and I think you're again just reinforcing the theme of relationship. That there's certainly jobs that people will get, I guess, as a result of like what I would call traditional HR pathways. But a lot of it still is relationships. It's working a network and getting a connection with somebody who's hiring for a position. Yeah. Tell me, now you got this new role at jail. By the way, I'm just somewhat curious. You obviously were working with your brother. How did your brother handle the fact that you kind of realized, hey, this is not what I want to do?
I wouldn't say I was a huge moneymaker for him. I think that's a fair assessment. I hope that he is proud and grateful of the role that he played in my professional development because he took me under his wing as when I say I didn't have any qualifications, however you could say I had negative qualifications for that job, that's kind of like where I was. And he took me from that to someone who can handle a calendar and go network and find meetings. And then whenever I said that this wasn't for me, it was sort of mutual parting.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool. Tell me what a typical day looks like for you at GLI now.
a typical day kind of looks a lot like this. I had a coffee at Quill's this morning. This coffee this morning was actually kind of interesting. It was a young man who moved back to Louisville 2 weeks ago. He knows me through LinkedIn. He wants to get connected into the city. There's tons of resources that I threw at him. I actually have to temper all of my recommendations because I don't want to overwhelm people with too many things. But it was a really, really nice meeting. And when I get to do those, that's me pouring into the younger version of myself. And those are always really cool. And then we're having this conversation right now. You're an investor that I manage. So we're strengthening this relationship. Actually, later today, I'm part of a photo shoot for our Live in Lou talent attraction campaign that we just launched a new website. This is a big initiative of ours to bring people to the city, to showcase the city, to help people stay here. Again, talent attraction is the theme there. And then this afternoon, I think I have some more investor meetings. So I'm out and about. If I'm at my computer for too long, I'm not happy. I like to be interfacing with people, figuring out what their needs are and how I can connect them with resources that they need.
So yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's just again, it's a continuation of a lot of just connections and establishing and deepening relationships. Tell me how kind of that investor development role. I mean, obviously you're charged with members, which in some respect probably is just primarily a revenue generating position, but for the purpose of supporting GLI's mission across the region. So talk a little bit about kind of how you see the work that you're doing and how it feeds the mission of GLI.
Yeah, you hit upon most of the major aspects of it. Number one, revenue driving. We're a membership-based organization. We don't exist if people don't invest in the work that we're doing. We harness investment in a couple of ways. We have a strategic plan so people can support that through investment and through giving. And then we have memberships, which are more so directly tied to return on investment for the benefits that people get based on whatever level of membership that they join at. So there's a direct correlation between what they pay and then what they get out of it in terms of business development or workforce development or advocacy or any number of those things. My role there is to manage a book of business and manage relationships with those investors that are already members. My role is also to go spread the word about what we do. So be a voice of GLI to the business community, bring people into the fold, show them what they're missing by not engaging in the work that we're doing. And I think that the most valuable way that I contribute to the goals of the organization is I generate positive goodwill. When you talk about a brand, I think that as far as I can tell, what a brand's highest function is to let someone know something about something before they actually touch it or see it or meet it. I mean, you think of Nike as a brand, it's sports and just do it and all this stuff, but you may have never even seen a Nike product. Whenever you think of the GLI brand, people think of us as growing regional economy. When you think of my personal brand and what I'm trying to build and what I hope I've been successful at is a helpful person that's approachable and has a story to tell and is here to help whoever needs help along the way. And I get to do that through those interactions like I had this morning with this young man named Tyrell. I get to do that through interactions with you. I get to do that through interactions with the business community. So I like to say that I'm boots on the ground in the mix here, really with my finger on the pulse of the business community, the young professional community, all the above.
Tell me, I am curious, like obviously LinkedIn, your LinkedIn presence and personal brand there has become, I think, really critical in your position with GLI. Was that a thing you decided to do? Was that a thing that they pushed you to do? A little bit of both? Like talk to me. And then I'll add on a question is talk to me a little bit about the process of your schedule of posting. Like how regimented is that? How just organic is that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's evolved from a long, long time. The genesis of all of this, rewind back with me to 2013. I started as a financial advisor. I get my licenses and I qualified as far as that goes to do the job. And then the job then is to network. And I wasn't qualified to do that. Jason, my brother, God love him, he's 13 years older than me. He started out as a financial advisor at Edward Jones. What's the Edward Jones business model? Let's go knock on doors.
Knock on doors. Yep.
For real. Knock on doors.
Literally.
People, no, for real. Yeah, that's what he did. And that was the advice that he gave me. He gave me a couple of tools to use to grow my network, but knock on doors was one of them. And I did it for a couple of days and I realized maybe this is not my path to success. So what else out there can I do? And I was at a business conference in Chicago and this guy named Kevin Knevel, he will always be the genesis of this entire story. He got up on stage and his thing was social selling. And he had this book and this course where he
spell that last
people,
name for me real quick. Kevin.
Yeah. Kevin, common spelling, Knevel, Knebl. This guy's awesome. So he had this course. He sold me on it, hook, line, and sinker. And he just really, it was like a 10-week, hour-long a week thing. And he just showed me the platform. I mean, I was aware of LinkedIn, but he showed it to me. He helped me understand the mechanics of it and really opened my eyes as to how you can use it as a tool to grow your network intentionally. And it was this sort of 1, 2, 3 step process. And that was about 10 years ago that I took his course.
He was ahead of his time then, man.
Yeah, he was the OG as far as LinkedIn selling goes. And I've employed his strategy and tweaked it and refined it over these years. And so that's what started it all. And then once I got to GLI, it was just everything that I'm doing now Number one, doesn't have to be run through compliance. Number two is it dry as toast because it's talking about IRA distributions. And number three, it's interesting to my network because all these people are business professionals, and it turned into just this perfect resource and avenue. Number one, for me to just share who I am authentically, which is what I do a lot of, and also to share the businesses and all the great things that I see going on here. And it's really been a privilege and a just amazing thing to watch unfold.
So and again, because you did it, was just that was something that you kind of brought to the role. It wasn't like they sat you down like, hey, we really want you to build a strong presence on LinkedIn. Because you had done it previously and learned how to do it. You're just like, it was just kind of at that point a part of who you are and how you were going to execute any role as.
Yep. And as
Yeah.
far as I can tell, what makes me successful in that role is that it's me talking. It's me talking about me and what it is that I do because I'm a person. I'm not a business talking. You know, I talk on behalf of the work that I do at GLI, but a social network is people connecting with people. And then you have businesses on there, and there's all sorts of ways that you can interact with different people and different businesses. But it's me, it's my story, and it's a great marriage.
One of the things that Brad Luttrell and I talked about was just that we feel like any organization these days is really got to be thinking in terms of building community, even if really no matter what line of work you're in or how big or small you are, you have to be thinking about building community. And the way that you do that is through storytelling. And the storytelling is just, I always say that the high level objective of our marketing at Goodson is to communicate the personality of our company. And I think it's funny. You were talking about earlier, like about what is branding. And I'm not an authority on this, but I always come back to feeling like branding is about communicating the personality of your organization, because much like you've communicated your personality individually, or if you're even like take for example, you just go out and you're networking and you meet a person you've never met before. I mean, they always say don't judge a book by its cover, but we do. And so you meet a person and you're already starting to form thoughts, opinions, whatever. And then as they communicate, how they talk, what they say, what they talk about starts to build a brand in your mind, which is their personality. And then you're deciding, this is a person I want more time with, or maybe not, or maybe I can help them or they can help me, or whatever. And so it's just interesting, because what I hear really you saying, and what I think is really interesting about the role that you have at GLI and how you've leveraged LinkedIn, is the other thing that Brad and I talked about is that people are really these days wanting to know the people behind the companies and the organizations. They want to have a personal connection. And so you meet with this young guy this morning, and I think, listening to how you said it, is like he's moved to the area and he knew GLI through you. So if he's looking at GLI, potentially, not that, no knock on GLI, but if he's just seeing GLI's posts, it can feel lifeless. It's just a thing. It's an organization. It doesn't have a face. But then he sees you posting and you're, close to his age and, or whatever, and you're talking like a human being and not like a bot or, a business. And he's like, okay, I mean, it's relatable. And I think that's a really important lesson. I mean, if I think about branding and what I want people to take away, and what I think we're learning at Goodson, is you have to know who you are. In order to communicate your personality, you got to know what it is. A lot of times people don't. And you have to be willing to be authentic about it. That's something that Brad and I talked about as well. If you're going to go out there and just say a bunch of vanilla stuff that everyone else says, it's not going to have a lot of impact. So you got to know who you are. You got to be willing to actually be who you are. And then from there, you'll start to build community, because people will either resonate with that and they won't, or they won't. And the people that will, you'll have an opportunity to do the work that you're trying to do.
Yeah, you can't be everything to everyone. You just got to find out who your true self is. And that's been a huge part of these last 12 years, since walking into that office with that suit on, trying to figure out how to go sell people investments, to now in this job. And I'm still doing that. And every single day that I get to go out here and meet people and make connections that do this job, I get to learn more about myself. And that's great. And I think you hit on a point that I value very highly, which is be authentic, and just, you can be messy and mess up. Everything doesn't have to be perfectly. You don't have to use Grammarly for everything. In the age of AI and content creation at the snap of a finger and trying to figure out what's what, I think it really makes that authentic communication just so much more valuable. And it takes the pressure off of me whenever I go to share something or go to post, or, want to put something out there. I want it to look nice. I want it to be in order. I want it to flow or whatever. But more so, I'm just thinking, I don't care if this isn't the right word. I don't care if this isn't grammatically correct. Yeah. This is how a human talks and communicates. And I think that you're going to see that shine through even more so now with all of these AI tools that people are using.
Tell me a couple last questions as we kind of wind down. One is, You mentioned Live and Lou, obviously GLI. Talk to me just about some of the initiatives, some of the things that if you were sitting down, if we're not doing this, we're sitting down having coffee. I'm new to the area, maybe the young guy this morning. What are the 2 or 3 things that you're like, man, every time I get an opportunity, I want people to know this about what GLI is working.
Yeah, absolutely. Live and Lou is a big part of that. They're a huge talent
It's
attraction
Live and Lou.
campaign of
What's the
ours.
website? Sorry, I don't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt, but yeah.
no, you're fine. Liveinlou.com. So LIVEINLOU.com. Their social media channels are great. This young man that I talked to this morning, he was already aware of Live and Lou. We put a lot of talent and resources behind that. Another thing that I encouraged him to do is come to our city champs training. There's a lot of resources and ways that you can get ingrained with the city. And one that GLI Live and Lou specifically has is called City Champs. So there was a twofold initiative for him. We can connect him with the city champ. These are people that are much like you and I. They've been here for a while. They know their way around. They're willing to accept coffee with someone that's new to town and show them their way around. And I can connect him with the city champ so that he has a friend in town that can help open up however many other doors that might happen. And we also have the city champs training so that he can learn all that there is to know about Louisville and the ins and outs and things like that. Those are really helpful tools and really helpful resources that we put together for individuals at his specific stage in life. And then if I was talking to a business, what I lean in most to are connections. We've got 1,600 businesses involved in our network. Those businesses are all made up of tons of individuals. It's not just Landon. It's not just me. So think about the network effect if you can tap into all of those through someone like me who can sit with you, ask the right questions, figure out who you're trying to meet with, what the purpose is, what your goals are. And then I can sort through all of these contacts and help you get to the right people. And you can just come to our events and see who you're going to find. I was talking with a new investor yesterday, and we were having an onboarding session where I was sort of going through all the stuff, but he had already come to some of our events. And he told me that he made more connections at one of our events in an hour and a half that he had made in the last 6 weeks. And I mean, that just makes me so happy because number one, the more people you add to your network, the more valuable it is. But number two, I'm a man of efficiency. I was out beating the streets, literally cold walking into businesses and knocking on people's doors back in the day. And that's great. I think that that's a nice way to level up and sort of cut your teeth out there. But if you can be efficient with your networking and have the right people there that you could talk to so that you have more time to go home and be with your family and go have dinner with them. And you're not always out at the happy hour, whatever it is that, is keeping you from the people that are waiting for you at home. I'm all about that. And GLI has just so many great events and ways to tap into the business community so that you can be efficient with the time that you spend networking.
It's definitely, I've always said, chamber, like many things, you get out of it what you put into it, and I'm sure you tell that to new members, like, hey, I can share with you all of these opportunities that you have, but the one thing we will not do is drive to your place of business, put you in the car and bring you to the event. So,
If someone needs a ride, sure. But I mean,
yeah,
you got to let me know.
Right. But I would think it's like, hey, if you're going to invest the money, you got to invest the time. But I can assure you that if you do make up your mind to invest the time, you will feel like you've gotten your value out of being a member of GLI.
And you got to know what you want. I mean, that's what I try to get out of people when I first meet with them and they're interested. What are you looking for? What does it look like a year from now if you've had the best experience ever? What did we accomplish? What was it that you got out of this? And if we can figure out what that is, and then I can tell you what resources you tap into to get there, then the only secret sauce from there is the time and the effort and energy to do the stuff. You
It's
have
like
no choice but to succeed.
It's cliche, but Zig Ziglar's whole, if you help people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And it's true. I mean, it's not manipulative. It's just the way life is. And all right. So last thing, I came across this article. We can't have as a matter of fact, in hindsight, I probably should have started with this. Your transition out of being a independent financial advisor. Now I'm just going to say it, just seeing if I can elicit a laugh every time. But to what you're doing now is a good start. But this probably would have been a better one. July 30th, 2024. Last week, GLI's Director of Investor Development, Jordan Clemons, was awarded the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, ACCE, Dana Kettering Lifetime Sales Achievement Award. Now, that sounds like a big deal. Tell me about that.
Sure, that was the second one that I've received.
Second one. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I got to slip that in there. Humble brag.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you better.
That's based on lifetime sales. And when I first started doing this GLI stuff, I was reaching out to anybody, trying to get them to come into the fold. We have several different tiers of memberships. It was hard. There's a lot to learn, and there's a huge learning curve as far as all the resources that we have at GLI and then being able to communicate those to businesses when you meet them. And over time, I've gotten better at that, and I've gotten better at pinpointing what it is that they need and matching them with those resources. And as a result of that, I've had sales success, and I've got a couple of fancy trophies in my office.
Trophies are good. I mean, unless you're Scotty Scheffler, he doesn't seem to care about them much, but I digress. So, all right, we've come down to the end here. I always like to ask my guests for advice that you have, and it's typically like for marketers. In this case, I just think maybe what I would say, and I think you alluded to it earlier, you had a coffee this morning with someone you characterized as kind of a younger version of yourself. So if you were talking to a young Jordan Clemons, and just with the benefit of the wisdom that you've now kind of gained, what would you tell them to do differently? What would you just tell them to do in general?
I would just tell them to go out and do something. And
That's great advice.
if you have some sort of semblance of where you're trying to go, or at least you have a goal in that moment, then go ask your network for help. Listen to what it is they tell you to do. Write it down. Pull on those threads. Follow the breadcrumbs. Show up to the networking events. Walk in the door. There are many times when I would show up back in the day and I would not even get out of the car. I mean, I'm telling you, I came from being the shyest, most nervous person you've ever met to this is my job now. And if that can work for me, just listening to what people say, taking their advice, reaching out to your community for help, then it can work for anyone. You don't have to know exactly where you're trying to go or what the ultimate goal is. Goals are great, but it's also about having some sort of short-term goal and then being present in the moment and willing to accept whatever's happening right then. Because going right back to the very beginning of what we started talking about, you could meet someone your second day networking that is going to change your entire life. You just don't know it yet, but you got to put yourself in those situations where you can have those unknowable things happen. And then that's where the magic is.
I love the advice. It's, and you made me think, being from Springfield, Ohio, I remember the first time I joined the chamber there, and I went to an ambassador meeting, and man, you just you took me back to sitting in my car, because I hadn't done it, sitting in my car, knowing that I knew no one in that room and forcing myself to walk in that room. And I remember sitting, and I was there a little bit late. So the conference table was full. So I had to sit in one of kind of the side chairs around the walls, and just absolutely anxiety at a massively high level. And the funny thing was, a year later, I was the chair of that group, and that was the ambassador group. So I think, forcing yourself, having clarity on a short-term goal, like you said, okay, what do I want to accomplish? Working the network that you have, and being willing to put yourself into some situations where you're going to be uncomfortable, much like working out and a lot of things in life. You don't really make a lot of gains unless you put yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable. But if you're willing to do that, pretty insane what you can probably accomplish.
I mean, think about it. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to be the smartest person, but if you could put yourself in those situations like you just described, you remember that day vividly. I bet you have a picture perfect memory up in your head. If you can put yourself in those situations often enough, good things will happen. And you're right. When you go to lift those weights or do the squats or whatever, it hurts. It doesn't feel good. And you're going to be sore the next day, but you're going to be glad that you did it. And you're going to be more confident in yourself every single time you put yourself in one of those situations. And then amazing things are going to happen. So if you can just get comfortable being uncomfortable, again, some of that age old wisdom, then things are going to work out.
You gave me a perfect segue into one other connection that we have. Jordan and I are both part of an organization called F3. I try to slip it in every chance I get because it's how much I care about it, how impactful it's been to me. F3nation.com, but we got one here in Louisville. So there's people listening to this that aren't in Louisville, and I'm sure there's an F3 close to you wherever you are. And if not, start one, because that's what we're all about. But yeah, and F3 is all about that. Getting up at 5:30 in the morning and doing hard things is one other way that we stretch ourselves. Jordan, tell everyone how they can connect with you. Obviously, LinkedIn's a big one, but feel free to just kind of give a few bullet points of how they can connect with you and, of course, GLI.
Yeah, we'll just keep it simple. LinkedIn. I'm easy to find on there. Send me a connection request. That is such a valuable tool because of all the people in my network, I want to make sure I keep tabs on every single one of them. I want to make sure I know what they're doing, and I want to give them an opportunity to know what I'm up to so that they can reach out and ask for help or just ask for whatever. So let's just keep it to LinkedIn. You can email me if you need to, jclemons@greaterlouisville.com. That's always great. My emails runneth over these days, but I will get to you. GreaterLouisville.com is where you can find everything about GLI. Liveinlou.com is where you can find all those talent attraction resources. Follow them on all the social media channels, and then you'll be inundated with so much opportunity. You won't know what to do with it.
Jordan, thanks again for the time. I know you're busy. This is great. I just love just the focus on the conversation around relationships that's really driven your brand, and as well as now obviously having a lot of positive impact for the GLI brand. So thank you again for doing this, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Landon, for the opportunity.